Trump vows to go after radical left colleges, echoing DeSantis' approach. Former President Donald Trump has announced his plan to expand the federal government's oversight of colleges and universities, with a focus on targeting administrators overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Trump's plan would replace existing accrediting organizations that oversee colleges and universities with new accreditors that would impose a range of new standards on colleges. The former president also pledged to require colleges to offer accelerated and low-cost degrees, provide meaningful job placement and career services, and implement entrance and exit exams to prove that students are actually learning and getting their money's worth. In addition, Trump's plan would require colleges to ensure that their curriculum defends the American tradition and Western civilization, although it does not provide additional details on what precisely that would entail. The proposal echoes policies that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has pursued in Florida, including legislation to restrict state colleges and universities from spending money on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Colleges must be accredited by a federally recognized accreditor in order to accept federal student loans and Pell Grants. The Education Department decides whether to recognize an accreditor based on whether it meets certain federal rules, focused mostly on whether accrediting agencies have the capacity to properly assess colleges and whether accreditors fairly and consistently apply their standards as they make decisions. Trump's proposed changes to accreditation standards go beyond the federal rules, and it's not clear if he would need to change the law to pursue such a sweeping overhaul of accreditors. During his time in office, Trump's Education Department under Secretary Betsy DeVos overhauled the federal rules governing college accrediting agencies. Those changes were largely aimed at eliminating regulatory burdens on colleges and accreditors, which DeVos said was needed to promote more innovation in higher education. The new rules gave accreditors more flexibility in how they approve programs, for example. But they did not target curriculum being taught at universities or what types of administrators they hire, as Trump is now proposing. Democrats assailed the Trump administration's changes as a weakening of oversight over colleges, and the Biden administration has said it plans to revisit the rules for college accreditors later this year. In addition, the Trump administration reinstated the federal powers of a large college accreditor of for-profit colleges that was responsible for approving campuses of ITT Tech and Corinthian colleges, two large chains of colleges that shuttered amid allegations of fraud and misconduct. That accreditor, the Accrediting Council for Independent Colleges and Schools, announced last year it was shutting down after the Biden administration revoked its federal recognition. Trump's plan to reshape higher education has received criticism from many, including educators and politicians who argue that it would infringe on academic freedom and institutional autonomy. Many see the proposal as a continuation of Trump's attacks on institutions that he believes are ideologically opposed to him, including colleges and universities. The former president has often criticized universities for what he perceives as a liberal bias, and his proposed changes to accreditation standards would likely lead to an increase in conservative-leaning colleges and universities. The proposal has also drawn criticism from students and faculty who argue that it would limit diversity and inclusion efforts on campuses. Many believe that removing administrators overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts would harm efforts to create more inclusive and welcoming environments for students of all backgrounds. In conclusion, former President Donald Trump has announced his plan to reshape higher education, targeting administrators overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. His proposal includes replacing existing accrediting organizations that oversee colleges and universities, offering accelerated and low-cost degrees, and requiring colleges to defend the American tradition and Western civilization in their curricula. The proposal has drawn criticism from many, who argue that it would infringe on academic freedom and limit diversity and inclusion efforts on campuses.